This episode of Amateur Traveler is sponsored by Masterclass. Learn from the best to become your best. Amateur Traveler, episode 879. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and sea turtles, sandbars and beach bars, swimming with pigs, and with nurse sharks, as we go to the Exumas in the Bahamas. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about the Exumas. I'd like to welcome to the show Tess from travelingtessie.com, who's come to talk to us about a destination in the Bahamas. And I'll let Tess explain it. Tess, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Where are we talking about?
Today we're talking about the Exumas.
And what are the Exumas? And if I get that, do I need a cream for it? Or
So the Exumas are part of the different islands that make up the Bahamas. The Exumas themselves consist of, I believe it's over 300 different islands, with the biggest island being Great Exuma, and Little Exuma is attached to it. So those are the main islands that you'll go into.
And what is your connection with the Bahamas or with the Exumas?
I actually went right towards the end of COVID when travel started opening back up. It was my first solo trip. I really just wanted to get away. And the Bahamas were on my list for a while. And I had always seen people swimming with the pigs. So I needed to know where that was. And I did a lot of research and realized that there wasn't a ton of information about it. So it made it even more enticing and made me want to go experience it. So I've been twice now and I love it. And I plan on going every year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When a travel blogger says they want to go someplace every year, that always piques my attention. So why should someone go to the Exumas?
I think it's a perfect destination if obviously you enjoy the beach, but the beaches there are very unique because they're really unspoiled and there's not a lot of crowds. So if someone's interested in that, it's a really great destination for that. But it's also great for people with kids, for bachelorettes, couples, friend groups that are looking for a place to get away from it all. So in my eyes, like when I went, you hear about the hidden gems in travel, but this, I feel like Exumas is truly a hidden gem.
Excellent. What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
I am going to recommend an itinerary that covers the beach, the history of the island, and the culture of it, so you can get a taste of everything.
Where are we going to start?
You fly into Georgetown to get to the Exumas, and we're going to start the first day. You'll arrive probably before lunch, check into your hotel. Most of the hotels are right on the beach, so you can spend the afternoon relaxing on the beach. Some of the beaches and hotels have kayaks, paddleboards, so you can just spend the day getting a lay of the land, seeing what the area is and where the hotel is.
And is there a particular hotel or type of hotel that you recommend we're staying at?
Yeah, I typically stay at Paradise Bay. It's not your usual hotel. It's little individual bungalows on the beach. So you have the privacy aspect. So they have 1 and 2 bedroom bungalows. Another thing that's actually really unique about Exumas is there's not really a lot of resorts on the island. There's one big resort and it's Sandals. Everything else is home rentals or just small boutique hotels.
Got it. So I don't have to be independently wealthy to stay at Paradise Bay.
No, not at all. It's I think like $200 to $300 a night. So it's pretty affordable.
Okay.
Your first full day, I would recommend booking a full day boat tour. You'll leave early in the morning, probably around 8 a.m. And they do hotel pickups, so you don't have to worry about transportation. And you're going to hit all of the major touristy things. They're not really touristy compared to your tourist attractions like in Europe or somewhere, but these will be the big spots for the day. On a boat tour, you will go to Thunderball Grotto and go snorkeling, which is where part of one of the original James Bond movies was filmed.
Okay, I was wondering if that was where possibly the movie Thunderball would be on the Okay.
Could you tell I don't watch James Bond?
You were not born yet when that movie
No.
came out. I think it's pretty safe to say. So
no. And then also on the tour, you will go swimming with the nurse sharks at Compass Cay Marina. This part is totally optional. If you really don't want to swim with the sharks, you don't have to. It's an additional $10 if you want to. And I did it because I feel like it's a once in a lifetime thing. I will never do it again.
When you say you will never do it again, I've swung with nurse sharks. It's not because you were terrified, I'm assuming.
No, I was pretty terrified.
Oh, you were terrified. Okay.
Yeah. I know they don't really hurt you, but I think it's just the adrenaline. And it is, to me, it's terrifying.
And these are not man eaters, which is why you
Mm-mm.
so they're also not huge, maybe
No.
5 feet long.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of them there. And
Uh-huh.
I think it's just the idea most people have of swimming with sharks. It may not be their first choice. So I feel like calling out that it's optional is very important.
All right.
And then after you swim with the sharks or not swim with the sharks, you will go to Pig Island, which is where you can swim with the pigs, which is probably the most popular thing to do in the Exumas. And I would recommend it because it is also a unique experience. I wouldn't pass up on that one.
And these are also not man-eating pigs.
No, they are wild pigs though. So they can be a little aggressive at times.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But
why are we swimming with pigs? Why are the pigs swimming?
I don't know. I don't think anyone really quite knows how the pigs got there.
Okay.
I heard that I think someone was moving to a different island for safety reasons a long time ago.
Okay.
And the pigs just ended up growing up there and grew in number. And now they've turned it into a tourist attraction. So you can go and they feed the pigs, will swim out in the ocean. I think it's also just different because you don't see pigs swimming in the ocean every day. So.
We talk about when pigs would fly. We never talk about when pigs would swim.
Exactly.
I feel that is a short-sightedness on our part.
So you'll swim with the pigs, and then lunch is also included in this. So you have a traditional Bahamian lunch, and then you end the day going to some sandbars that are by far the most beautiful sandbars I've ever seen. And it's actually where some of the Pirates of the Caribbean was filmed. So if you can just imagine that, you're just walking around with that as your background. It's absolutely beautiful.
And my impression is, as we're sailing along here, we're passing all sorts of little tiny islands and sandbars, and that it's a long string of some islands as big as my house is my impression. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, some are very small islands. I would say the majority, are pretty small.
Okay.
Maybe like the size of your neighborhood or something.
Okay.
And I know towards the beginning of the tour, I remember we passed a few little islands, where a lot of celebrities have houses. So they point that out and you keep going. This is probably the furthest you'll go when you're visiting the Exumas. If you rent your own boat, you have to stay in a certain area, whereas this tour, you really get to explore further out. So this is the day that you get to really go out and see what's not close to you.
Okay.
And so that is the first full day.
And where are we getting on that boat? Is that from Georgetown?
No. So some will do pickups in Georgetown. Most of the tour companies will pick you up from your hotel. So you just let them know where you're staying, or what, if you're renting a home, you tell them what area it's in, and they send a van that will pick you and your small group up. And once you go in the van, they'll bring you back to where the boats are based, which is at the very northern part of Great Exuma up near Rolleville. And that's where the boats depart.
So when you say as far as we're going up to the northwestern ends of the Exumas.
Yes.
Okay.
So day 3, we're going to stay in town, or on land at least, for the most part of the day, half of the day. And we're going to explore the town, which is Georgetown. Most people, when they refer to the town in the Exumas, they're talking about Georgetown. It's where the markets are. It's kind of the core of Great Exuma. And one of the main things to do for tourists when you're visiting Georgetown is go to the straw market. It's been around since the 60s, and it's an open air market, and it's filled with local vendors, and it's open every day except for on Sundays. And In the market, you can find a lot of paintings from local artists, tons of souvenirs, and handmade baskets and bags that are made from straw. That's one of the more unique souvenirs you can find there. I've gotten a couple on my trips, and they're really great and beautiful. And most of the women that make the straw baskets and the bags will actually be sitting there at their booth making more straw bags as you walk through the rows, and you can talk to them and learn how they got into it and the process. But it's really great and interesting to see. Yeah. And then once you're done shopping at the market, you can go grab lunch in Georgetown. You can just walk down the street. Sonia's Seafood is a great option, and Sandpiper Cafe is another really great option right there. And then once you've had lunch, we're going to take the ferry to Stocking Island. So the ferry leaves from Georgetown. There's a couple of ferry companies. One of them is Elvis's Water Taxi. And I think it's $10 or $15 to go round trip from Georgetown to the island right across from Great Exuma. It's called Stocking Island. And then we're going to spend the rest of the day at Stocking Island at Chat and Chill, which is probably one of the most well-known beach bars in Exumas. So a lot of visitors and boaters anchor their boat right on the side of Chat and Chill and hop out. And you can eat at the restaurant. There's seating areas all over the beach. They have beach games. To me, it's one of the best places you can get a fresh conch salad. Conch is really popular to eat probably in most of the Caribbean, but especially in the Bahamas. And they have a little hut outside with one guy who's just making conch salad all day. And there's a giant pile of conch shells next to him. And if you're friendly enough, you can learn how to make conch salad yourself and how he does it. And then another unique thing about Chat and Chill is they have stingrays that will come up to you in the shallow part of the water, and you can just stand there and watch them go by, and that's what they're known for.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're standing and watching from the dry part.
No, you can get in the water.
Oh, sure. You'll get in the water with stingrays. But,
yeah, but not the sharks.
You're terrified of the sharks. Okay.
Yes. Exactly. Okay, so that wraps up day 3. Day 4, we're going to hop in the car and head down to Little Exuma and explore some of the beaches there. When you get to Exumas or for your trip, it depends on how long you're staying, whether or not you need to rent a car. If you're staying a full week, I would definitely recommend renting a car. That way you can get around yourself whenever you want to. If you're staying for a less amount of time, you don't necessarily need a car if you plan on doing a lot of tours, because they will do hotel pickups. But if you're not renting a car, you can book a car service or a taxi service. They don't have Uber or Lyft there, so you'll need to do some research in advance and make appointments beforehand. I did not rent a car the first time I went, and I was fine because I stayed about, I think, 4 or 5 days. And this past time I went, I stayed 7 or 8 days, and we rented a car. And I really recommend renting a car if you plan on getting out and exploring.
And I'm seeing that a Great Exuma, I wanted to say a Big Exuma, and it wasn't that right, is about 33 miles long, and Little Exuma is about 10 miles long.
Yeah.
So too long to walk, a bit of a bike ride.
Yeah, too long to walk. And I don't think I've seen anyone bike there. The roads aren't the best in all the spots, so there's actually no shoulders on a lot of the roads. So walking, you won't really see people walking either.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I also like to note, if you are driving, I wouldn't recommend driving at night because the roads are really dark and there's potholes. Do your driving during the day.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So for the 4th day, we're getting in the car. We're going to go to Little Exuma, and the beaches there, I think, are by far my favorite. The beaches on Great Exuma are fantastic, but the ones on Little Exuma, they're very unspoiled, untouched. And I don't know, if you ever have a dream of where you're walking into the water and it's bright blue, the beach will be in Little Exuma. So some of the beaches we're going to go to is Pretty Molly Beach, Forbes Hill Beach, and Tropic of Cancer Beach. Tropic of Cancer Beach is probably the most popular out of those 3. There's a lot of rental homes around there. So some people will stay down there and just stay at that beach most of the time. But the other 2, I feel like You should definitely go. You can't miss them. Whenever I went on a weekday and no one was there, so I had the beaches to myself, which was great.
Seeing beautiful white powdery sand beaches.
Yes. Some even have, I think it's Forbes Hill Beach has even like the sand has a pinkish hue to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just, and the waters are so calm. There's no waves. So I saw at Tropic of Cancer, I saw some people bring floats and float in the water. They're great places to snorkel. You can pretty much always see a fish or something.
This episode of Amateur Traveler is sponsored by Masterclass. Picture the thing you've always wanted to learn. Now picture learning it from the person who's literally the best at it in the world. That's what you get with Masterclass. And this is one of the things I've enjoyed about the different classes that I've done with Masterclass, whether it be The Art of Negotiation by Chris Voss, who's an FBI negotiator, or watching the class by Steve Martin on comedy. There's something very unique about this offering. If you're making your New Year's resolutions, and I certainly would encourage you to think about that, don't just talk about improving, be the person you want to be, and learn from the best to become your best with Masterclass. Masterclass offers 180 world-class instructors, so whatever you want to master, so whether you want to learn cooking and are doing so with Gordon Ramsay, or you want to learn about writing and you're doing so with James Patterson, Masterclass has a class for you. You get unlimited access to intimate one-on-one classes with the world's best. There are over 200 classes to choose from, with new classes added every month. And right now, our listeners will get an additional 15% off an annual membership at masterclass.com/traveler. Get 15% off right now at masterclass.com/traveler. Again, that's masterclass.com/traveler. And thanks to Masterclass for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
And then after you are done spending the first half of the day in the sun at the beach, as you make your way back to Great Exuma, I definitely recommend taking an eco tour at Mariah Harbor Cay National Park. That park is newer. It was established in 2002 and it's expanded to about 17,000 acres at this point.
Why is it a national park? Is it the wildlife? Is it the scenery?
It is the marine life.
Okay.
Yeah, it is mostly protecting the marine life. It's basically like an ocean park.
I'm seeing
It's all
coral reefs and mangroves and
yeah,
creeks and okay.
yeah. It's a lot of sandbars. They're really trying to protect the mangroves there. So there's a lot of areas there that boats are not allowed on. So I was really glad that I found the eco tour to do last time I went, because that's probably the best way to see it. It's kayaking, or you can do a stand-up paddleboard and you go through it on a guided tour, and they tell you why the park is important and what types of marine life live there. And you go through different.
And what types of marine life live there?
There are sea turtles. What else did we see? Sea turtles, I think needlefish, starfish, there's seahorses, stingrays. I think those are the main ones.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on the tour, you'll also visit the lazy river. It's getting more popular, I think, with tourists for visitors that are going. And it's actually, like those lazy rivers at water parks.
Sure, yeah.
It's like that, but it's just nature's own lazy river. So the current there is really strong, and you put on a life vest and you lay back and relax, and it just takes you down the river. It's really, I don't know, I've never seen anything like it.
Huh, okay. And then you go out to sea.
Yeah, it's actually the current is from the ocean inland. So there's this big, I don't know, curve, like sand hill that you walk over, and then you start down there and it takes you back. Okay. But yeah, it's super relaxing. And it's actually a funny story. It was really relaxing, so much so that I was holding my GoPro when I went because I wanted to get some good shots. And I relaxed so much that I accidentally let go. And now my GoPro is at the bottom of the ocean there.
Oh, no. I find that when I'm doing underwater photography with my GoPro, it's better when I have it on the handle that floats.
Yeah.
Let that be a recommendation for the next trip.
Yeah, definitely. I learned my lesson. Yeah. And then the tour, overall, the woman that owns it, it's called TT Water Sports. She's a local, and she went on the tour that I was a part of, and you could really just tell how much she appreciates the island and the environment. She's just super passionate about it. Seeing that firsthand, like from someone who lives there, who doesn't take it for granted living there, like she actually really wants to protect the area and make sure, it's there for her kids and her grandkids and everyone else's.
Okay. We should tell people too, if people are just listening and are not looking at the pictures which are in this version, we're talking about that kind of typical turquoise Caribbean water in many places here with the really beautiful white sand beaches or pink sand beaches or whatever. If you're thinking Caribbean and you've got that mental image, I think you've got the right image, is my impression.
Yeah. The next full day is day 5. This day, we're still going to go to some beaches because there's plenty of beaches in the Exumas. But we're going to start the day with an ATV tour in the morning. And on the tour, you're going to learn about the history of the island from a local guide who was born and raised there. And this tour departs and explores the northwestern part of Great Exuma, not as far as where the boat departed from on the first day tour, but close to that.
Okay.
This tour, you'll make a stop at Coco Plum Beach, which is a really great beach for kite surfing. It gets windy there, and it's just a great place for that. And you'll ride along the beach in the dunes. And then you'll also go to Exuma Point, which is a very large sandbar at the northeastern part of the island. And it's really interesting to go there in the morning when the tide is low. You can see a lot of young marine life hanging out there. So even like young sharks and stingrays, you can just walk pretty far out, probably like a mile, maybe a mile and a half out into the water on the sandbar. And on either side, you can see small marine life swimming around. So that's pretty interesting to see. And then you'll also stop on the ATV tour at the historical site of Pompeii and the ruins of the jail.
Okay.
Yeah. And
not the Pompeii that I'm thinking of.
Not the Pompeii you're thinking of. Pompeii is the name of a man who was actually enslaved in the 1800s, and he led a rebellion, which was a pretty key moment in the Bahamian fight for freedom. So it's interesting to hear about it on the tour and the full history of it and the impact it had on everything. And then I learned a fun fact when I was on the tour that I think is super interesting, is about the ruins of the jail and how today there's actually not a jail on either island, which is a little unheard of these days, but the crime rate is extremely low. So they just don't have a need for it. And if they do have anyone that commits a crime that's serious enough, that person is sent to Freeport. So,
okay.
Yeah. So it's a really great place for solo travelers too, even though they don't really get a lot of solo travelers. And then after the tour, we're going to have lunch. And then we're going to go to Hooper's Bay Beach in the afternoon to swim and snorkel with some wild sea turtles.
Okay.
So Hooper's Bay Beach is about 10 minutes away from Georgetown, and it is a beautiful white sand beach. There's a small parking lot across the street from the beach access point sign, and all beach parking on the Exumas is free, so you don't ever have to worry about that. Once you park, you're going to cross the street. You're going to follow a small path next to a concrete wall, so it's hidden and obscure, and you're going to go down the steps, and then you'll hit the white sand beach.
Okay.
And then once you get in the sand, you're going to head to your right, walk about 10 minutes to a boardwalk, and that is where the sea turtles hang out, and you can stay there as long as you want to. It's completely free. You can just snorkel and follow them around. That's pretty much what I did because I love sea turtles. But definitely don't feed them. There's signs everywhere that says, please don't feed them. I think people do feed them, but I feel like with any wildlife, you don't really want to feed them. You shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's how we're going to end the day on day 5. For day 6, we are going to do some exploring on our own in a boat. So we're going to rent a boat for the day. There's a lot of rental companies in Georgetown. So we're going to rent a boat from there. And then we're going to explore some little hidden areas in Elizabeth Harbor. So if you're renting a boat yourself from Georgetown, I believe most, if not all, boat rental companies make you stay within Elizabeth Harbor. You still, I don't know, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, I'm going to be trapped in this small area. But there's a lot to see within Elizabeth Harbor. You can see an underwater cave. We can go to Starfish Beach and try to find starfish on the seafloor. I found maybe 8 or 10 when I went, and they're massive, bright red, spiky looking starfish.
Oh, okay. Sea stars.
Yeah. Yeah, sea stars. Yep. They're probably
Okay.
the size of your head or bigger.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also a coral reef that you can snorkel. It is between Guana Cay and Foul Cay. It's a beautiful coral reef. So I feel like if you rent a boat when you're visiting, definitely head that way. It's not marked on like Google Maps, but the boat company that I rented a boat from, they give you a laminated map and it has all the little spots that you'll want to stop and see. And it was on there, and it's a thriving coral reef. It's very beautiful.
And I'm assuming you took us out to Stocking Island and Chat and Chill on the second day, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And that all of the water in between Grand Exuma and that long skinny island is Elizabeth Bay?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Elizabeth,
So it's
Elizabeth
more than a few
Harbor.
miles long. Okay.
Yeah, and it even extends further out past Stocking Island. So
Okay.
your barrier or parameter is really the northern part of Stocking Island, northwestern part, and then
Okay.
you can go all the way basically down to Man o' War Cay.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit before that. Actually, I think really past Foul Cay. There's like an invisible line. It's on the map when you get the map.
The bottom line there is it's in a sheltered bay with an outer barrier island, so it's going to be a little less choppy than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that's why they do it. They don't really want
Yep.
anyone not familiar with boating to get out there and something bad happen.
Okay. And you were just taking us to the reef, and
Yes.
when I interrupted.
Yes, we went to the coral reef, and then there's also Sand Dollar Beach. It depends on the time of year you go. When I went last year, I went in June, and there weren't any sand dollars there, but usually it's a good spot to find sand dollars. And probably, as you can tell, most points of interest in the Exumas are pretty self-explanatory, like Starfish Beach and Sand Dollar Beach.
The only thing that hasn't been clear to me is I've been trying to find where the name Exuma comes from, and I don't know.
I know. Yeah. I don't think I found that either. And also, I feel like it can be Exuma or the Exumas or Exumas. There's so many iterations of it. But yeah, that is pretty much the full day will just be spent popping around there. The underwater cave is really cool. You can't swim into it. It's pretty deep, and I think the current gets a little strong, so they do advise you to not get too close to the cave entrance. And the water is very cold there, but you can jump out of the boat and snorkel around there. There's a ton of fish that usually hang out around there. And then there's also a blue hole not far from there that you can go and explore that too.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last day, I would spend that going back to Exuma Point Beach, depending on when you went for the ATV tour. It's probably going to be later in the day and not always at low tide. So if you can make it back there for low tide, that is definitely something to see. And then you're really just relaxing before you catch your flight back home.
Excellent. Sound like you're wrapping us up there. Anything else we should know, though, before we book our trip to Bahamas and to the Exumas?
I think probably something good to know that I was probably most surprised about is you're not going to find any supermarket, like big box names, big companies, any chain restaurants.
You didn't mention it, but Georgetown is like 2,000 some people. You said town, not city.
Yeah, town.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and I don't know if it's maybe I just personally haven't been really to any place that doesn't have a Starbucks, at least one, or one McDonald's, but they really don't have anything like that. And their government is pretty strict about it. And I think that makes it even more special of a place. They really take pride in the locals owning their own businesses and things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm obviously packing a swimsuit and maybe my snorkel and fins and such. Anything else that I need to remember to take when I go to the Exumas?
Lots of sunscreen. And I would bring one of those sun shirts because
Sure, always.
even if you think your skin can take it, I definitely thought mine could, and it cannot.
I gave up years ago on trying to get a tan. I just try to avoid the burn.
Yeah.
Excellent. And do you wear a rash guard then? Do you do the full long sleeve, long legs when you're out snorkeling then?
No, I usually just keep to a long sleeve top.
Okay.
I'll probably start with a regular swimsuit top, and then halfway through the day, I'll throw on a long sleeve top.
Got it.
Yeah.
Excellent. As we get to our wrap up questions, you're standing in the prettiest spot in the Exumas. Where are you standing? What are you looking at?
I would be standing at Forbes Hill Beach, I think.
Okay.
I think to me, that was the moment that I was like, I want to come here every year. That kind of did it for me.
Okay.
It's crystal clear water, bright blue. It's a bay. So that's actually the beach that has the sand with the pinkish hue.
Okay.
And there's like rocks, like giant rocks and boulders on either side of the bay, of the horseshoe part. And you can climb up there and just look out over the ocean, and it's beautiful.
Excellent. And one thing that makes you laugh and say only in the Exumas?
Probably sense of time, more so from the locals. I think the whole culture there is, I don't want to say slow, but they definitely take their time, and they're not in a hurry at all.
Okay. I see that the high point in the Exumas is 128 feet. This whole thing is fairly low. Might want to get there before global warming makes half of it disappear.
Yeah.
If you had to summarize a trip to the Exumas in 3 words, what words would you use?
Relaxing, breathtaking,
Okay.
and welcoming.
Excellent. Our guest again has been Tess from travelingtessie.com. That's TESSIE.com. And Tess, if we wanted to send people to your best post on the Exumas, where are we going to send them?
Yeah, it's going to be the ultimate guide to Exuma,
Well,
which I'm actually going to be updating soon and adding more things.
That sounds like where we want to send them. I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for the Bahamas and specifically the Exumas.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. I hope to make this show my main income sometime, and the patrons certainly help with that as I think about career changes and such coming up. I've been looking for airfares for Morocco for that trip in April, and in the Amateur Traveler Trips group, amateurtraveler.com/trips, which is a private Facebook group, we're going to start soon voting on where to go in 2025. Not 2015, as I put in the first post, because I do not own a time traveling machine, and if I did, that's probably not what I would use it for. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.